Hi there, I'm Senner, and this video is about my latest project that I would like to share with you. Now, a few years back, I used to frequent a lot of thrift stores, and of course I always went for the tech section first, because that's where the fun stuff is, the best stuff is. Mainly, it's cables, like SCART cables and coaxials and chargers for phones you didn't know or didn't want to exist. But every once in a while, you'll come across something like this. Now this here is a specialized controller, and you should always pick things up if they look like this. And this is a few reasons why. It's a specialized controller, so they can be hard to come by, and especially secondhand. And also, it is, if you check to see, it is connected via USB. So it's a fairly recent manufacture, which means you can probably just plug it in to your PC setup and see what it does. And of course, it has a lot of buttons and levers, right? And we all know that fun increases exponentially in relation to the amount of buttons and levers that your toy has. So well, this here is a RailDriver. It is meant to drive simulated trains and stuff like that. And so a week after I found it, I found a train simulator on sale, so I tried it out and it worked fine. The only problem is that the horn lever right here was removed for some reason, but I figured I could probably work around that, right? There's not a lot of traffic on the rails who needs a horn anyway, right? So this product, the RailDriver, is made by RailDriver, which is the division of P.I Engineering. And you can reach their sites by xkeys.com. That's the P.I Engineering site. And this particular model, the RailDriver, can be reached on raildriver.com. They have all the drivers and a lot of helpful tips and stuff like that, and a link if you want to purchase them. And the thing is that I checked on this P.I Engineering site, and apparently they make a lot of input units, like customized input units. And I had to quickly leave the site because otherwise I would go completely broke. I wanted everything, especially the pedals, because I could do some really fun things with pedals. Well, anyway, so I made a switch to Linux not long after I bought it, and most simulators don't work a lot well on Linux, right? So I didn't really try it out as much and sat on my shelf collecting dust, sadly. But I had this idea that I really couldn't shake. What if I could play something with it other than train games, right? So I figured it would take a bit of work to get my idea going, so I didn't really get into it until much later, but now I have. And the answer is yes, you can play things other than train simulators with it. I ran into a few roadblocks, which I will explain afterwards, which was kind of fun in their own. And well, basically, when I applied it into Linux, the buttons worked, the levers did not, and there were a few other problems. So I saw other people had done something with this, like other drivers and stuff like that. So I figured if I could just read the USB, which I had never done before, so I could get it to work. So I did. I read the USB data and I converted it and I made an event handler so I could use it for other things. Now, since I basically made my own driver and I made my own purpose for it, I didn't really want to. I didn't know how P.I Engineering would feel about this. I didn't know the license agreements and stuff like that because I didn't buy it firsthand. So I shot them an email, figured I'd ask tech support, right? And I said, I made this project and I made my own drivers pretty much, so I don't want to step on anyone's toes. Is this okay? Can I share this? And of course, they replied really quickly, I think almost the same day or the day after, and said, well, that sounds fun. And he ran it by his CEO, and his CEO said that it's fun, it's fine. He can't really see a market for it, maybe. But since they work on railroad projects, they are required to wear steel-toed boots or shoes. So it doesn't hurt if I step on their toes. So this is what I did. Not step on their toes, but this is what I have dubbed or given the code name Rail Sound. I hope you like it. All right, so this here is the Rail Sounder, or a RailDriver performing as the Rail Sounder. And full disclosure, I have not played around with a lot of this before. For example, I didn't read any USB data before, and I've never used a software synthesizer like this before, so it's been touch and go. I'm not an expert by any means. And also, it turns out I do not know how to play the keyboard, which probably should have thought of before. But anyway, so what we got here is the graphical UI that I made using Pygame and Python, because I've used it before, and I figured I could make a prototype that would allow me to just see if the buttons are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And they are, and the levers are also fairly responsive, like this, and the switches too. Pretty cool. So what we got here, and this is the first setup that I made. You'll see at the top left that it says current mode semitones, which is the chromatic scale. So it ranges from, for example, C, then C3, to C4 up here. That is 12 semitones between C3 and C4, because you got all these sharps, which are also flats. Just to try it out, and it works. I mean, these are the notes that we can play. So all of these blue buttons down here, the regular rectangular buttons, they correspond to notes, and they correspond to the notes that you see on the UI. The blue up and down switch here are used to change the octaves. So for example, if I push it down, you'll see that C3 becomes C2, and C4 becomes C3. So now we got a bit darker here. So that's pretty cool. And I'll go from C -2. I'm not sure about the lower octaves because I don't know if anyone actually plays them, but pretty dark. And we'll go up until G8, which, yeah, doesn't make much sound. Let's see when it starts to. Alright. Depends on the instrument that I play at the moment. So we go back down. We got the D-pad over here. So if I push it up, we'll change the instrument. So we go from a Yamaha grand piano up to a bright Yamaha grand. Right? Electric piano. We can go down, as you see, and we can go right, which will go up by 10 for ease of use. Because there are 128 instruments, I really needed a way to just kind of jump up. Sadly, they're not always at the same volume, but, you know, that's why I have this lever right here, which controls the velocity, which in this case is akin to volume. So. Right, so those the basic functions down here. Let's see. For example, if I wanted to take a chord, I can play several notes at the same time. So I can play a chord. And a really major third chord, a major triad, I should say, contains a root note, and then a major third, and a perfect fifth. And these are quite fun. So if I have C3 as the root, and I want to play a C major chord, I will need to go to the major third, which is up by 4 semitones. So the E, or 1, 2, 3, the major third. Right, and we also need the perfect fifth, which is then 7 up from the root note, which would make a G. So a C major chord, just like this. And you can see the range here. I could do it with one hand, I think. But yeah, that's because my hands are enormous. So yeah, it's not gonna play a lot of chords like that, right? So I needed to make it more easily accessible for the ones with not humongous hands. So I made a chord mode. Now see that the flats and the sharps are gone, and they're replaced with minor chords. And this is just to try it out. So this will play the C major, and the C minor, and the D major, and the D minor. Right, so now I can play some chords. So let's see, we got an That's an A minor I want. Hold on. So that's pretty cool, but now I can't play arpeggio, right? I can't play the single tones in a chord, which you want to do sometimes. Let's see if we do like right, we can't do that if they're all chords, because we'll just be playing a bunch of chords, right? So I needed to fix that too. So I made a hybrid mode. So now the buttons in the top row, 14 top buttons, will play the chords in the same setup before: C, C minor, D, D minor. And the ones down here will just play singular notes. So right? So that's pretty cool. Now I can pretty much play, but you're gonna sit like this. It's gonna be not very ergonomically sound. As it turns out, I believe that this control stick, the RailDriver, was probably not meant to be a keyboard synthesizer. Which, yeah, maybe they'll make a new version. Or maybe they'll just make a keyboard then. Or not do it at all. I don't know. Right, so I also made a piano note. And on piano, you got all the white buttons at the bottom. They correspond to the whole note. So C, D, E, F, G, D. And the upper, the black ones, correspond to the semitones between them. So the C sharp, and the D sharp, and the F sharp, and the G sharp, and the A sharp. And that way you can play a C major chord, which is, it's a lot shorter distance between the root and perfect fifth, right? And that means you can play, that means you can play bigger chords more easily accessible. So we got like, man, yeah, I'm not gonna use this a lot, but it's kind of fun. I just wanted to try it out. So what if we, you know, if we got all these customization options right here, right? So we don't actually have to be constrained by any of this. So I made a custom mode. The custom mode, I used the left one up here, the range, up and down switchy thingy, to go between main modes. And then you see it says no woman simple right next to it, right? That is my current custom mode. So now I've set these up, the 4 buttons over here, to be the chords played by the left hand. Cool. And these left ones are the melodic notes played by the right hand, which are like Alright, so as it turns out, and I think this is the biggest scam in the music industry, it is actually impossible to play like this. Because if the melodic notes would hit at the same beat as the chords, right, then it'd be fine, but they don't. And that makes it impossible to play. So my theory is that once upon a time, we invented the self-playing piano, and everyone is secretly using them, and the rest is just flair. Or maybe I'm just not good at it. So I needed a fix for this as well. And how do you fix not being able to play it? Well, as it turns out, the library that I used to, well, for the software synthesizer, right? It comes with the sequencer. So now, I have this little sand button up here. So let's go down again to the Yamaha grand piano. Alright, those are the 4 chords in the order we want to play them. So I'll push the sand button. Alright. If you noticed, it would say record or rec up in the right corner. So now we can press P. Right. Oh, we press the alert button, the red one, to just make it stop sounding. Right, so that's what we could do. And I also got so as I mentioned, I can use the right one here, the E-stop switchy thingy, to go between the sets that I've entered into the program, which is the Hallelujah symbol, and this one I can play. But it has the same concept right here. So we got these ones, which are not entire major third chords, major triad chords, right? And this is important because in the customized set thingy that I'll explain it later, I made it so that you can enter custom chords. And these ones actually use the root and the perfect fifth, leaving out the major third, if I'm not mistaken. So it's just 2 notes to make these, and it goes like yeah. So I don't have the notes right in front of me right now, but anyway, yeah, those are the chords, and you got the same setup here. You got the melody, and you'll see that it's not There are no sharps or anything. I just inputted the notes that I wanted. That's it. And in the future, right? I'm gonna this up and down switch doesn't do anything right now. Well, it does change the octave if we go to another mode, I think. But it doesn't actually change anything in the set. And this is because I haven't exactly worked out the syntax that I want to use, but it is almost done. And what you're going to be able to do is just enter a set, and then you go up and down to the different notes. So for example, I could have a setup which plays these chords over here, as well as the bass beginning notes of the song, with a do 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 do, those ones. I can set that to the record, and then I'll switch the set, right, and I can play the melody. So I can utilize it a lot. And for example, in the future, if I decide to add the functionality of adding more loops and different instruments playing different loops, which I'm fairly certain I can do, I can just have an instrument or something like that per set here. Play the loop, and I'll switch, and I'll play the next loop. So it's pretty cool. I mean, it's not ergonomically sound as a keyboard, but who cares? It's got all these buttons and all these levers. So we'll go back to, for example, semitones. And we have a lot of things here. We have these switch. I've told you what the first lever does. It changes the velocity, pretty much the volume right now. And you'll see that the other ones have vibrato, reverb, and bend. And at this time, like right now, it doesn't do anything. So I made this switch over here. The lights switch will make these actually matter. So let's go from right to left, because that's the way I added them. This is the bend. So the bend will go from approximately minus 8.2k to positive, should be around 8k, around the same, but the levers are not exact right now. And what this does is it bends the note. So and the bend is equivalent approximately to a span of, I think, 4 semitone. Approximately, yeah. So that's pretty cool. We also got the reverb. So this the reverb basically simulates a reverberation in a room. Hold on. There is a few crashing bugs in it, unfortunately, still. Some of have to do with the USB reading thingy. The library that I use to read the USB crashes sometimes, and I'm not sure exactly sure why. Anyway, this is, as I said, simulates the reverb of a room. And let's see. There we go. It's not bug free. This is a prototype, right? And there were actually a lot of variables that you could put to the reverb in this kind of software synthesizer. This lever controls the width of the room that's being simulated, but you can also control dampening and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool, right? And I got this hook up here, the emergency auto brake thingy, which would put it around 0, which is cool. I like that. But it'll stay up there until I crack it. Alright, so we also got let's see. We also got vibrato. Alright, so let's see. Yeah, we got vibrato, which is what you'd expect. We got this kind of springy. these are basically just so I want to show off that these are why I wanted the levers. I can do some weird things with them, which is awesome. That's why I decided to I opted to make my own driver, because I really wanted the functionality of doing this. Otherwise, I do have a keyboard just lying around back there, right? And you have velocity. So what so there are a lot of instruments, like I said, and one of my favorites, let's see, I think it's 27, the clean guitar. This sounds very 80s to me. I love it. Let's try it with reverb, see what happens. I mean, isn't it cool? It's kind of cool, right? All right, so there are a few things that I maybe should mention. This is pretty much what I can do with it. Just playing the music. This is the fun part, right? So let's get a little more technical, maybe. So how do I make sure that the chords turn out correctly? As it turns out, music theory is strange, very strange. We all know this. Thankfully, the chords are mathematically consistent. So a major triad chord will always be a root plus 4 semitones plus 7 semitones. So a major triad is made up of a root, a major third, and a perfect fifth. The major third goes up 3 staff positions. The lines are spaced in this musical notation here. So a line is a staff position and a space is a staff position. So we got one here. We go 1, 2, 3, right? And that is always equivalent to 4 semitones, the larger of them, because these lines correspond to whole notes in regular, if you don't have any extra notation on them. So it doesn't represent the flats and sharps. Like you have up here, the chromatic scale contains 12 semitones. So you see all these whole notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. And you got C sharp, D sharp, F sharp, G sharp, and A sharp. So thankfully, the major third is always equivalent to 4 semitones, and the perfect fifth, which is the interval from the first to the last of 5 consecutive notes in a diatonic scale, which is the C, D, E, F, G, A, B. And the perfect fifth is equivalent to 7 semitones, plus 7 semitones, I should say. So with this, I can just take a root and mathematically just add the other 2 notes, and it would be consistent with every chord. And likewise, the minor third is the minor triad is the minor third instead, which is always 3 semitones. And this is consistent along all of the chords that I have seen. So if you want to take a C 7th chord where you add the 7th as well as the perfect fifth and the major third, you go up by 10, so plus 10. So even though I haven't shown it off in the RailSounder GUI and the chords that I played, I've actually added the functionality of playing 7th chords as well as the inversions of every chord. And this is just music theory. It's nothing to do with the RailSounder, but I just wanted to point it out that they are mathematically consistent. So I can make a function that will play the chords without any problem. Well, without much problem, I should say. So what we got here, also this is the hard drive, the RailDriver, which is produced by P.I Engineering, which you can find and you can buy your own and you can get this running. In the future, I might add the code on GitHub or something like that if someone wants to try it out. Or just have a look at it. But right now, it's a lot of spaghetti code and the like, so I need to clean it up before I go do anything like that. But let's see if we have a. I'll just add the. Oh, that's stupid. I haven't added one of the things that I wanted to show off. So let's add that to the explanation here. We want a image. There we go. Hold on just a second. All right, so the rail sounder that I call it is comprised of mainly 3 classes that I've written myself, mostly, which is the sound. It controls all of the functions pertaining to playing the notes. We got the GUI, which is made in Pygame, as I said. Just it will display everything on screen. And we got the input side, which is well, how the computer or my program interprets the data from the RailDriver. Right, so the sound is made. I use FluidSynth, which is a library that controls FluidSynth, which is a software synthesizer. And the FluidSynth synthesizer uses a sound font, and this you can change the sound font without any problems. And the sound font basically contains the information that you need to play different instruments and stuff like that. And I haven't played around a lot with it, but I know there are, for example, some 80s inspired like synthwave sound fonts out there that I really want to try. I'm using a very standard one, which is the general MIDI fluid resonator sound font thingy. And as I said, just the main part of it contains 128 instruments, and the sound font also gives the information to do a lot of the different things that you can change about the sound as well. So the FluidSynth and the sound font are installed separately on my system, and I think, well, these are the what do you call them? The recommended dependencies. This sound font for FluidSynth, and I think that in Windows and sometimes Mac, I think they come pre-installed. I'm not entirely certain. I use Linux, so I installed it myself. I use Arch Linux. I just installed FluidSynth from the repository, and downloaded the sound font. All right, so that's basically the sound side. The PyFluidSynth library has a lot of functions that talk to FluidSynth, so I don't have to do that on my own. I don't think it contains all of them right now, all the functions that you can do, but the project is up on GitHub. I will post the links to all of this later on, but it's up on GitHub. You can download it, you can play around with it. Sadly, in Linux, there are a lot of weird sound problems that you'll encounter. For example, I hope you haven't heard it, but when I got this program on, I actually got a slight sound distortion, which I haven't been able to figure out exactly how to deal with yet. And then we got the GUI, which is just Pygame. I used their screen display thing to render things on screen. It works fine. I've never had any problems with it. And we also got then on the input side, and this is the PyUSB library, which is also up on GitHub, I think. They have a site anyway, I will link to it. Basically, I read raw data from the USB, and I think I found out later that I could find the information that I needed to do it a bit better. So in future versions, I will look through this. But I've never used Pi USB or USB reading before, and I've never used Pi FluidSynth, so this is much a learning project for me. What Pi USB does, it just reads the data from the RailDriver, which I get from the USB, and then I coded the input class, the event handler, which basically converts and makes sure what's being pressed, what's being released on the RailDriver. And then I convert it all. So the rail sounder encompasses it all and uses all of these main three classes to produce the sounds and the graphical interface that you can see. Well, not right now, but and that's pretty much the theory. So I did go and I did have some problems when I plugged the RailDriver into the USB. One thing that hit me immediately was that my mouse wasn't working. It would move around, but it wouldn't actually do anything. I felt I couldn't change any windows, change the focus between windows, right? And as it turns out, I used Xinput to check it out, and the RailDriver was being seen as a mouse, and for some reason removed some of the permissions of my regular mouse. Thankfully, you can detach things and with Xinput. I won't get into it, but it didn't become a problem because JS test or ev tests would not pick up the levers, which wasn't okay with me. So I made my own driver, as I said, and the Pi USB library to use to read the data, you have to detach it from the kernel. So my program detaches the RailDriver from the kernel modules, which means it does not do anything that I don't want it to. So it didn't become a problem. I just solved it, right? But it was weird. I'm not exactly sure what happened there, and I don't know if it's reproducible in any other systems. But yeah, that's what happened. There are a few other bugs with the input, which I'm not entirely certain why, but it's probably the way I read the input. So if I press the G, no, sorry, let's lower the volume. If I press the G and the G sharp here, and I'll press the G minor, you see that A4 gets pushed as well. And I looked through this, and it seems that the way that the data changes is not consistent when a lot of things are inputted at once. I think that's what happened, but I will look into doing this in a better way in the future when I move the project on to its next stage, which is this, what I'd like to see in the future regarding this project. As I said, the system for displaying more sets in the custom set is almost complete, but not quite. I'm gonna fix that up real soon. I'd like to be able to spell, apparently. I'd like to be able to separate and set the instrument that plays a loop to be different from the notes you play manually. Right now, they are playing on different channels, but I do use the same instruments for both of them. But I want to revise the loop playing functionality at its core, so I don't want to mix with that right now. So I can play, I'm fairly sure I can play different sequencers on different channels, meaning I'd like to be able to create several loops playing at once. So I'd maybe just have like a switch, and you go into loop recording mode, and you can use the up down button to change which loop you're affecting at a time. I think that should work. I think it's cool. I think it's gonna be cool. I also think that the Pi FluidSynth library or the FluidSynth has the ability to play samples, so I could maybe record some drum beats and stuff like that, or even like my other instruments, my guitar or my bass or anything like that, just play a beat or a sample and just play it and then play over it with the rail sounder, which could be pretty cool. I mean, I could compose things on this. I don't know if I'm going to, but I could. And that's the important part. You don't always do things because it makes things easier, because you have to. You do things because it's fun, right? It's fun to play around. I learned a lot with this project, and it's really, really, really fun. I'd also like to design a system for inputting sets in a user-friendly way. One idea that I have is to maybe have like you go like this, and whenever you push a button, it will open a small display here, which asks, what do you want to play? What do you want to add to this button, to your new custom set? That way I could just with the program and the rail sounder itself, the RailDriver, I could make it easy. Right now it is let's go here. Well, I have this thing set up. This is how I input a set. This is just a text file, and it has the name of the set, which will be displayed in the rail sounder GUI, and what to play. I want to play a major triad. I want to play it on the first row and the first button, and I want it to play note 53, and that's going to be the root, and then I'll use the chord function to make a major triad chord out of it, and it's going to be played on the row 1. And this is the important part about setting different ones with this, so I can change between the different sets. And I want to play the singles. I want to play the single on the first row, the 8th button, and I want to play the 69th note, which is 9 semitones up from the basic C3, which is 60, and also the first. And this works for me because I know the syntax, but I want to make a program that lets you input this easily, so you have no room for error. Because when given chance to error, we are right. So that's it. Let's see. I'll get the error. Right. And the thing that I'm most excited about, I should say, is I want to create a standalone solution. Right now, this is plugged into my PC setup, but I want to make a standalone solution where I can just bring this with me and plug it into a USB outlet or an electrical outlet somewhere and play music. Just bring it along, make it a portable synth. And the way I want to do this right now, I have an idea for using a Raspberry Pi that I'll attach with a small screen and a speaker, and then I'll just have to install my program. Hopefully it will work. I'll install the program on the Raspberry Pi. Hopefully it will work. I think it's gonna work, but we'll see. I think it's gonna be pretty cool. Just have to get the hardware for it. And then I will become a musical sensation as soon as I learn to play the keyboard, and then learn to play the rail sounder. All right, so let's see what we got here. I wonder if I added. Should have been more prepared, but so. As I mentioned in the intro, I spoke with well, I mailed with the tech support for RailDriver, and the CEO said this thing about the steel toe boats. Like, so I'm fairly certain that this is the coolest place to work on Earth. I'm not entirely certain, I haven't been there, but it seems like. So the tech support guy, boss, then made this picture, which I just had to share. Says, I'd like to introduce the band: John on guitar, Jimmy on bass, Bobby on the drums, and of course Gina on the RailDriver. And I can see this being the future of live music industry. It's cracked me up. I love it. So I spent some time, as I said, on the P.I Engineering's website, and as it turns out, they have a lot of cool stuff there. You should really check it out. Full disclosure, I have not received anything from them other than pretty fun emails. And to be honest, at the price that I got this at, it's pretty much stealing. So anyway, I want to leave you with one final note, which I will use my pencil, trusty pencil. Let's hope this works right. Have a good one.